Oh, hi. I didn't see you come in. Welcome to Mugs and Moogles.
I'm I'm sorry. What? This is Coffee and Carbuncle, though someone did stick a poorly placed cardboard sign written in barely readable text on top of my cafe this morning.
No. It's always been Moogle and the Mugs. Honest. I'm not swearing. It's honest truth. Anyway, tell me who you are.
I'm Nobutaka, the owner of this cafe. A better question is, who are you and why are you dressed like a Moogle?
Um, um, just 1 second, sir. And bang.
Huh. Well, I guess I'll just wait for him to come back then. Weird.
Super. For those that don't know, my guest today is Nobutaku Fairclough. How are you doing, mate? It's weird saying that on this podcast. But hi.
It's kind of weird not being the host of my own podcast, but good day to you as well, Chille.
Well, as you know, this is Coffee and Carbuncles. You start every episode by asking, so what are you drinking while doing this? And are you more of a tea or a coffee person?
Well, in spite of the name Coffee and Carbuncles, recently I've actually been trying to have less coffee and more tea. I've kind of met myself halfway with that, where I've settled on having iced chai. So not quite as close to water as tea is, but still not quite coffee, but quite a bit of caffeine. So kind of a compromise. In regards to what I'm drinking, I actually have something new today. It's a sparkling watermelon juice, and I just happened to find it at the store, and it's really good.
That sounds awesome. Actually, I'm a huge sparkling water fan myself. I have some lemon and lime. That's what I'm drinking right now.
Oh, nice.
And I mean, I guess it's not like, I mean, I don't think I need to answer. I'm British, of course. I'm more of a tea person. I feel like it's our default state. So, but that's awesome. And that does sound, the tea sounds really good as well. Like, I have never tried anything but normal Earl Grey tea. So, would be interesting to try and experience it sometime.
I know sometimes you
Uh,
have people send you food. Do you want me to send you tea sometime?
sure. And we could give it a try. I don't know how I would have to look into it. We'll talk to her after the show, maybe. We'll see what
All right.
happens. Maybe there'll be a D off. Is that a sentence? It's a sentence.
I
uh,
figured out something.
uh, so while we're on about this, to start off, can you tell me about your background? Where are you from?
So I am from the United States. I grew up in the Midwest.
That's awesome. So for hobbies, you play 14. Is there any other hobbies you want to share with us?
Well, aside from 14, I've talked about it a bit on here. I really enjoy studying Japanese history. Something about the various time periods in Japanese history just really interests me, and I like history in general, really. History and occasionally astronomy, though I really haven't had a lot of time to do that lately. Being in the Midwest, you'd think that with having a lot of wide open fields, I would have a lot of time to go and do astronomy and have, relatively little light pollution and clear skies, but we get quite a bit of rain here. We get quite a bit of snow, and the skies are a bit more cloudy than people would think. Probably a bit more often. So the whole astronomy thing is something that I really haven't been exploring in recent years as much as I wish I did.
I mean, there is always time. You'll have your time to be able to do it in the future. Hopefully, get some astrology done. I'm surprised you're not an astrologian then.
I have an alt that's an astrologian actually as their healer of choice. So it still gets played. It's still in rotation.
Very fitting. What brought you to Final Fantasy 14 and what made you decide to give it a try? Do you have any experiences with the franchise, like any of the other previous Final Fantasy games?
Yes. So first off, I guess I'll start with my background with Final Fantasy. Like a lot of people, I started Final Fantasy playing Final Fantasy VII and Final Fantasy Tactics. Of the two of them, I definitely enjoy Tactics more, but Final Fantasy VII was a really unique and interesting story, and it came out when I was fairly young, and being my first like really long RPG to play, it was an experience. I didn't understand the materia system very well, and combining materia, and that I think hindered me a bit, but overall it was a really fun game. And then played 8 after that. Didn't really play 9. Didn't ever pick it up or anything, but I played 8, and then 10 came out, and 10 was awesome, and I recently replayed 10 and had a blast with it. And I'm really hoping that the new 14 expansion will have a lot of Final Fantasy X stuff in it, because I feel like we haven't seen all that much stuff from 10 in the game yet, and so I've kind of been hoping they were holding off until we were going on some island adventure, boating trip sort of thing, which it seems like we've reached that point. So I know a lot of people are hoping for Blitzball, but I'm hoping that the new 14 expansion will be to Final Fantasy X what Endwalker was to Final Fantasy IV, and just have a ton of those connections, and I would love that. In regards to what brought me to 14, I actually was really hesitant when 14 first came out. I was in college, I was broke, and I could not afford a MMORPG with the subscription, but fortunately I had some friends that were very kind and offered to pay my subscription for me at first. So I occasionally would take breaks from 14 because, they were broke college students too, but they were being very generous with their money. And then post college, I finally had a proper job and enough money that I could pay my own sub. And so I was able to play 14 pretty regularly. But I guess what really appealed to me, this is going to sound kind of silly, but I guess what really appealed to me about 14 is that when I was looking at the classes for 14, I've told this story before. I saw Arcanist, and it was this picture of an Arcanist, I believe in Elysian, with a carbuncle, and I was like, oh, cool, carbuncle from Final Fantasy 7 and 8, and I was like, do I get to summon it? And my friend was like, no, it's a pet. It follows you around. You have it all the time. And I was sold pretty quick.
Yeah, Carbuncle is adorable. Fun fact, there's actually a Carbuncle Prime fight in Final Fantasy XI where you fight a load of them.
Wait, really?
You fight a load of you fight a load of carbuncles at the same time.
Oh my gosh,
I've actually never experienced that fight, so
I need to Google image search, or not Google, YouTube this now. Oh my gosh.
yeah, I think it's Carbuncle Prime. I think it's called, or something like that. Yeah, it was a really tough fight back in the day. Carbuncle could one shot you. Like, it's not too bad now because of the fact that they've increased the levels, so it hasn't really scaled. But back when it was the cap, yeah, Carbuncle Prime was one of the toughest fights. So, and Carbuncle as always was adorable. So,
oh my gosh, it's like 6 carbuncles and Garuda and Titan, it looks like.
He can spawn random but he can spawn random ones.
Oh my gosh, what a cool fight.
Yeah.
What level was this? Like, how far into the game was it?
Level 80. And the cap at the time was 75. So.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Like, I'm watching a YouTube clip of it, and this just seems... It seems terrifying but adorable at the same time, because it's hard to take fighting these carbuncles seriously, but at the same time, yeah, they're doing some damage. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That is awesome. Okay. I'm gonna try and put my love of carbuncles aside for a second. It's going to be a very difficult effort, but I'm gonna try so I can stay focused.
Good luck. All right, so you have the game, you're getting into it. So tell us about your beginning journeys in Nausea. What was the whole thing like? How was the new player experience when you started?
Oh gosh, this is going to sound bad. The new player experience was kind of awful. And that's not a reflection on the community per se. When I first started playing 14, I was using a PS, I think 3, maybe PS3, PS4, something like that. And I had such bad lag. Like with the Titan fight, I floor tanked that entire fight because whenever he did the ground AoEs, I would never be able to get out of them quick enough, even using sprint. So my initial playing of 14 was a lot of me floor tanking and also a lot of me just not knowing what I was doing and really just following around my friends who, they had paid for me to play this game. So I'm trying to play it with them and I'm trying to be good at this game. And I just was also new to MMOs in general and I just did horrid. At the same time, I ended up in a free company that my very, very, very first free company I was in was very focused on raiding. And being new to MMORPGs, joining a very in-game raid-focused free company was a horrible experience because they were constantly telling me best in slot, you need to have this, you need to do this. And I'm just over here going, so I click the button and it does damage, right? Hopefully. But then eventually I met some really nice people in some really awesome free companies. I bounced around from free company to free company for a bit, but I started getting more used to the game and more comfortable playing Arcanist and then Summoner. And I'd ended up in a free company where one of the best players in the free company was a Summoner. So during A Realm Reborn, that gave me someone I could bug about all my questions and someone I could look up to. And I basically went, well, I want to be as good of a summoner as her. And so that was really good motivation and really helped me to get through A Realm Reborn and get into the game.
Such motivation. Sorry.
Oh, it was definitely their intention.
So what class is your character and does that tie into your role playing at all?
Well, here we are on Coffee and Carbuncles. I could not begin to imagine my class or how it ties into my role playing.
Yeah, well, I was really shocked when I found out you were a warrior.
Well, not a lot of people expect it, but every time I'm able to just get on and bust out my axe and go cut boulders in half, it's the best 14 experience I can ask for. But really though, obviously I love Summoner, and Summoner does play a large part in my role playing. For me, when I'm role playing, Nobutaka is someone who really enjoys being a summoner and exploring magic, and as dumb as it's gonna sound, being able to pet all of the things from his chocobo to his carbuncles to his summons to everything. It's just pet all the cute monsters. But in regards to role playing, since I do enjoy Summoner as a class so much, I did make it a very key part to his role playing personality. And when I was even thinking about getting into podcasting, I was like, well, I need a name that goes along with what I enjoy about 14. And Carbuncles and Summoner were the first thing that came to mind.
That's really cool, if I'm honest. And I agree, pet all the cute things. So, you're in 14. Did you follow any content creators or find guides, or was it mostly asking others for advice? I know you mentioned your free company friend, but did you check anywhere else?
At first, when I was getting into 14, because it was so laggy, because I couldn't really play it as often as I would like since I wasn't able to afford the sub, when I was unsubbed or just didn't have time or just got too frustrated with the lag, a lot of the times I would be on YouTube and I would pay attention to Mr. Happy's YouTube channel. Just all of the guides and stuff and going through 14 and just following his stuff. Also, Zeppela quite a bit.
That's awesome. They're both wonderful content creators. Mr. Happy, I've met personally. He is lovely. I do recommend all of his content, so please go check out Mr. Happy on YouTube. I know he doesn't need a plug, but I'm still going to do it anyway because it's me. Come on, when do I not spend time plugging other content creators?
I think the thing that strikes me about Mr. Happy is, in spite of how big of a following he has, whenever I see him interacting with others or hear about others' interactions with him, he just seems very, very kind and very down to earth, and like he doesn't have, an inflated ego or anything.
No, he is awesome. So, kind of following away from that question is, when did you yourself wanted to start become a content creator?
So, interestingly, that didn't come about from YouTube. It actually came about from me starting to use the program Spotify. Most people know it for music, but obviously it has podcasts. And since I was on Spotify and enjoying 14 music, which I listen to most of the time I'm at work, I ended up looking up 14 podcasts, and I actually didn't know that there were 14 podcasts until I searched them. And there was one podcast in particular, Musecast 14, hosted by Emmy and Remix Sakura, it was all about roleplay, and I just got into it. I thought that it was such a neat podcast, and they were so creative, and I tuned into every episode, and I was over there being such a big fanboy that I was like, I wish that instead of just like being a fan, I could do what they do, that I could kind of, be on their level. And so I really thought about being a content creator, but I didn't know, what would I talk about? Because you look on YouTube, you look at these 14 podcasts, and not everyone, but a lot of people tend to talk about, the state of the game, updates, content they want to see, et cetera, et cetera. And so I just felt like, what could I do? What could I talk about that would be different from everyone else? And everything I thought of was just kind of what I felt everyone else was doing. And then eventually you hit a point where you're like, well, just go with it. I mean, I was really nervous and had some very supportive friends that were like, yeah, well, even though content creators tend to talk about similar things, everyone approaches it differently, everyone has different opinions. Throwing your voice in there couldn't hurt. And so even then I still had some confidence issues, but fortunately, my first guest on here, Velderin, was really supportive. He's like, hey, we know each other. I'll be your first guest. It'll be an easy conversation. Let's see what happens. And so I thank him, and I thank everyone else who gave me a lot of encouragement and made me go from just kind of casually thinking about being a content creator to actually not only wanting to be, but deciding to be one.
That's awesome. It is nice to see more content creators in the space, and I think what you do is a little unique compared to a lot of other content creators. So you should be proud of what you make. It's really good, and you do an amazing job.
I really appreciate that. Something I've spoken with Synodic Scribe about quite a bit is it's interesting seeing one of the parallels between 14 and World of Warcraft, in that in World of Warcraft, the creative team doesn't seem to be super involved with PR and all that outgoing, and so it seems like Blizzard really tries to raise up and promote content creators, whereas in 14, the dev team is super outgoing, super involved in everything, and especially, you can see at FanFest, Yoshi P is very much treated like a rock star, and some people have said that kind of hinders 14 content creators being as well known, because there's not as big of a push by Square Enix to promote content creators. But I think that especially in the past, I'd say 2 to 3 years, you've really seen that change. I mean, just look at, we had Frosty and Brian Ricardo hosting the PvP tournament at FanFest just last weekend. And we also have, media tours on YouTube where Yoshi P, when Endwalker was coming out, was interviewed by a ton of different content creators. And so I think there really is more of a push to uplift 14 content creators by Square Enix lately. And I think that's great. I think that helps a lot.
I agree. That is awesome. So, all right, everyone. But Nobu and I are going to give our vocal cords a little bit of a rest, and we'll be right back. We're gonna have a sip of our drinks. Be back soon. Welcome back, everyone. In part 2, we're going to be discussing Coffee and Carbuncles, as well as answering some questions submitted by listeners of the podcast. Remember, you could go check this out on all your favorite podcast systems. Go check out. Make sure you give. I don't know why I'm saying this. If you already know that if you're listening to it right now, so go tell a friend. I'll wait a second.
Thank you.
Okay, so why the name Coffee and Carbuncles? Why? We know you love Carbuncles and you played Summoner, but you also said the fact you prefer tea. So, how did you get to Coffee and Carbuncles from tea and? Well, I guess tea and Carbuncles doesn't go as well, but still.
Well, yeah, tea and coffee. Jeez, sure. Welcome to Tea and Coffee, everyone. Actually, it's a bit pleasant. sounds kind of relaxing, but anyway, Coffee and Carbuncles came about.
I'll be honest. I'm sorry, but no, tea and coffee would be the opposite of relaxing if you drank both of them.
Oh, that's true. Caffeine.
That's a lot of caffeine.
Yeah. Oh gosh. So Coffee and Carbuncles. When I was thinking of how to do a podcast, I used to hold roleplay events in 14. I haven't had the time lately, but when I did, I would hold cafes, and I love the casual atmosphere both in 14 and in real life that comes with a cafe. I feel like when you're in a cafe, the inherent atmosphere is you relax, have a nice drink, sip it a bit slow, talk with the person you're with, or if you're by yourself, just be alone with your thoughts and be able to focus and be productive. And I love that cafe atmosphere. And so I really wanted, with an interview podcast, to bring that atmosphere as best I could into the podcast. And so I wanted the name to reflect that. And obviously, I love Carbuncles and I love Summoner. And so funny enough, the biggest issue with Coffee and Carbuncles was deciding if I wanted it to be Coffee and Carbuncles or Carbuncles and Coffee. But I think Coffee and Carbuncles just rolls off the tongue a bit better.
I agree. Carbuncle and Coffee is it sounds weird, even though it's just the opposite name. Like, I don't know. It's not. Coffee and Carbuncles is so much better.
Ultimately, it's a decision I haven't regretted.
It was a good decision. You decided well. So people talk about the Coffee and Carbuncles logo quite a bit. I actually think it's really cute and I love it. But who did the art for that and how did you get it?
Okay, so there is an artist named Ye Azarni who is known in some 14 communities as being kind of a Raubon fanatic. She's that person that always posts art of her Al-Ra being shipped with Raubon, and upset a few people by making some jokes about wishing Nanamo actually had perished. But she's such a fantastic person, and she's such a great
Boo-earns. Boo-earns.
What?
I said boo-earns. I'm sorry, but Nanamo is awesome. But Raubon is cool too, though. But still,
she loves Raubon. She even had a very cute Raubon plush made, and it's adorable. But back on the logo, so Ye and I are friends, and she's super nice. And I told her that I was thinking of doing this podcast, And I told her about it. And I told her that I wanted to interview her because I wanted to dive into her feelings about Raubon, why she liked the character so much, how she felt about pushback towards her shipping and all of that. And she was like, cool. So, do you have any art or anything for the podcast yet? And I was like, yeah, a little. And she's like, why don't I make you a logo and I will do it for free? And I was taken back. I was like, whoa, okay, that's awesome. Sure. And I wasn't about to say no. So she asked what I wanted in the logo. I was like, well, I want something cute. It's called Coffee and Carbuncles. Maybe like a carbuncle enjoying the heat and warmth coming from a coffee cup. And so she showed me the art and I was just blown away. And I was like, all right, this is awesome. I'm going to use it. And every time people comment on the art and say they like it, I tell her and she gets so excited about it because, it's a lot like when you're a content creator and people say that they like your YouTube channel or they like your podcast. It's the exact same for artists. Obviously, hearing that her work is appreciated, I think means a lot to her.
That's awesome. I bet she's a huge fan of the Lalafell in Drybone then, in a way.
No doubt.
The one that is asleep in the room that's asking Raubon to make him his sultana.
I think that she probably views the Lala as competition and would be like hunch and growl and be like, nope, mine.
So, what goes into making the Coffee and Carbuncle episode? What is the process?
Okay, so kind of a multi-step process. The first thing is I figure out a topic. I figure out something pertaining to 14 that I want to either know more about or I want to talk about and explore with my audience. And then I think about, okay, now who would be a good person in the community that could speak on this topic, that could represent this part of the community that I feel knows a lot about it. And then it's a matter of reaching out to that person, presenting the episode premise to them, and waiting a bit, hearing back. Coordinating time is the hardest part of any Coffee and Carbuncles episode because 14, as cool as it is that it has players all over the world, that also sometimes makes time coordination really difficult. And so, kind of figuring out, well, even though I want to have an episode with this person on this topic, will both of our schedules allow that? And if they do, then we usually set aside a Saturday. For those that haven't been on the podcast, for those that have been, obviously you know this, but we actually kind of record in segments where we do the intro, part 1, part 2, and then I'll do the outro later. And then I spend, I'd say about, 3 to 4 hours, just editing, putting everything together, making sure that everything gets onto Spotify, and I'm like looking up, free use sounds and trying to figure out what do I want the intro skit to sound like and be like, and taking out all the ums and hus and spaces, pauses in the interview itself, and then by Saturday evening uploading the interview, and then Sunday morning promoting the interview, and Sunday afternoon getting back with my guest and asking, well, how do you feel the interview went, and have you gotten feedback from people? Because when I have someone on, obviously people who like Coffee and Carbuncles are going to listen to these episodes, but also you have people that aren't necessarily a fan of or aware of my podcast, but are friends or fans of the person I'm interviewing. And so they're getting a completely different set of feedback than I would. And so I like to get with my guest usually about a day or two or so after an episode comes out and just see what kind of feedback they've been getting on it. And that's really kind of the entire process. In regards to coming up with questions, that happens once I know that someone will be able to be on the podcast, and once we've figured out the topic, I'll usually take like 3 to 5 days to figure out questions and get a script together and everything and make sure they're comfortable with it. And then when we record on Saturday, we go for it.
Now, as I'm the one asking questions and hosting this time, and you're technically the guest, does that mean that I now need to contact you after the show and ask how you... Are we going to reverse it?
Hey, if in 2 days you want to ask me how feedback on the episode is going, feel free.
We'll try. I will try and remember.
Actually, the big question here is: in 2 days, do I need to DM myself and ask if I've gotten any extra feedback on the episode?
That would be strange. How would you even do that? How would I don't think you can DM yourself, right? I don't think that's even possible on.
Chille, I'm a role player. I can do anything.
That is true. You have the power of imagination. Very powerful.
Exactly. Or
I mean,
I'll get someone to roleplay as me, and I'll just roleplay, quote unquote, with myself.
Man, we're getting it's very confusing now. But okay, it'll work. And you know, I'm joking about the power of imagination. But you are indeed a summoner, and all of your summons from you pulling from memories, right? So technically, you're an expert in this.
Memory and magical geometry, which is hilarious because geometry was my single worst subject throughout all of my schooling. So if anyone ever asks what the difference is between me and my roleplay character, one of us is really good at geometry and the other one had terrible grades and almost didn't pass high school geometry.
Yeah, but the difference is one of those is real words are hard geometry. One is real and the other one is magical. Maybe you'll be better at magical ones. You don't know. You can't do that in real life, but who knows? Maybe you'd be better at magical.
What I will say is if during high school math, they had told me that I could use math and all of the, crazy kind of random things of, well, this is where you'll need geometry in the future. If they had told me that I could summon a cute blue little fidget bunny, and the fidget bunny's power would be based on how good my math was, that would have been a way better incentive to pass math.
Yeah. Or you would have got a C for Carbuncle.
Oh yeah, no, that's a fair point. I'm kind of curious what like S through D grade carbuncles would look like, but I kind of don't want to see a D grade carbuncle.
What would it be like? It'd be like Sapphire, S, Amethyst. I can't think of a B. Like Crystal, Diamond, Emerald, and an F. I can't think of an F either. Fluorite.
Just the carbuncle. F is when Tataru tried to be an arcanist and her carbuncle just didn't listen to her.
Yeah, but the difference is her carbuncle is now sentient. So she was so powerful that it became too powerful that it didn't listen. Basically, she didn't get her gym badges in Pokemon and caught a level 75 carbuncle, but she's level 40.
So then maybe the issue isn't that if it's an F carbuncle, maybe the issue is it's actually like a triple S rank carbuncle.
Yeah, yes. Yeah. So, continue talking about the podcast, but has it been difficult getting guests on the podcast? How did other content creators react when you asked them to be on?
We are both not good with words today. Oh gosh, like I'm trying to say things and I feel like I have too many thoughts in my head. Like I'm trying to figure out where to start my answers. And so, sorry to everyone if some of this comes out a bit jumbled at the start. If you hear any stuttering from Chille or I, it's because we're trying really hard to figure out where to focus our thoughts and our questions.
Look, we're trying. I'm trying to learn summoning as we speak. So I'm having to use my imagination to try and summon the ability to do good interviews.
You've done great interviews longer than I have, so.
But I don't know. I feel like my stuff is always a little bit more casual. Like we like yeah, we're very casual. So
yeah, I mean, I think that you and Paul do great. When you and I have had talks, especially when the podcast first started, about getting guests on and how to reach out to guests. So, but in regards to the question itself, it really hasn't been that difficult. There are some people, some really well-known content creators and members of the 14 community that aren't necessarily content creators, but just are big names in game on various servers that I've wanted to have on, and no one's been rude or anything like that, but I have had a few guests, well, potential guests, that just politely sent me an email or DM on Twitter or something back and went, hey, I'd like to, but I just don't have time. I mean, especially like some of the larger content creators, talking with a few of them and hearing about their schedules, when they say they don't have time for something, it's not like trying to shrug someone off or duck them or anything. They just really do not have time. Like, their schedules are crazy.
Well, I just want to say thank you for having me on as a guest. Well, host guest. Still, thank you so much.
I appreciate you being willing to be here today and taking over the host role. Thank you.
Yeah, it's been weird talking about it on the other show when I go live and like, yeah, I'm going to be on Coffee and Carbuncle, and technically it's been weird. But I've been really looking forward to being on this show, so thank you.
At some point, we will have a proper Moogle Go Round interview episode, most likely in Season 2.
Yay! There's a Season 2 preview, everyone. You're welcome.
Oh, gosh, darn it, that was supposed to come later. Not that everyone didn't already know. But we will get there. We will talk about that in a bit.
I mean, we didn't even mention the fact there's a Season 2 or the fact that, oh, well, what a twist. But
spoilers.
Moving on. Yeah, spoiler warning. Shh, spoilers. Anyway, yeah, you've spoken on social media and a few episodes about how the podcast has helped with anxiety and depression. Could you talk more about that? Because mental health is really important for everyone, and you should make sure you pay a lot of attention to your mental health, because mental health is is as important as physical health. So yeah, make sure you look after yourself, everyone.
Yeah. And this is something that on my interview with the mini media that we talked about is something that I don't think enough content creators go into discussions about mental health and depression, because I feel like they're worried about dragging the mood down, which I get. But there are times where I do think it's good to be open and talk about it. I'm someone who does have quite a bit of anxiety, and especially before making this podcast, I was in a rut because I was doing okay in life. I have a decent job, but I didn't really feel like I had met a lot of my personal goals. Like, I feel like I was quote unquote adulting pretty well, but I didn't feel necessarily happy or satisfied or really all that confident with myself. And so I hit my birthday last year, and for those that don't know, I'm in my, let's say, early to mid 30s. And I thought, wow, here I am being above 30, and I have all of these things that I have had on my bucket list and still haven't accomplished. And at first I felt really depressed about it. And then I was like, all right, well, how about this? Every year, I'm on my birthday, I will pick a goal and I will work really hard to accomplish that goal by my next birthday. And so instead of seeing this huge list of things that I still didn't do, I was like, all right, well, what if I take this list because I noticed it didn't change that much throughout the years? And I went, what if I take it year by year, one item at a time? And so last year, my goal was, well, I want to finally get this podcast started and I want to be a successful podcast host. And this year, my goal is that I have a bunch of history books that I keep collecting and haven't read yet. And so I've used goodreads.com to organize all of the books I own, and I want to read as many of them as possible by my next birthday. And I found that doing that, itemizing really helps with anxiety, and taking it literally, instead of looking at this big towering list, taking it one line item at a time. And also, this podcast has helped a lot with anxiety and depression, because since I've been hosting Coffee and Carbuncles, and since people have been tuning in, giving feedback, just checking out the podcast, it's made me feel as though if I really try, I can actually get things accomplished. And even things that seem like lofty goals. Like, I never expected more than maybe 10 people to ever listen to Coffee and Carbuncles. And yet, now we're at over 1,000 downloads, quite a few followers on social media, quite a few followers on Spotify. And I think that it would be very difficult for me, after having pulled off what I consider to be quite the feat, to not have that self-confidence boost. And I'm not going to lie, obviously, some days I still have anxiety, some days I still have depression, but realizing that if I really try, I can accomplish some of these larger goals has helped with that a lot.
It's all about trying to take every day as it comes, day by day, because you don't want to push yourself, but at the same time, you want to push yourself a little bit, but you don't want to go too far. But you just got to make sure you take every day as it is, even though that it sounds easy, but trust me, it's harder than it sounds.
Yeah, for sure. Especially when a lot of time it's you in competition with either someone else or something else. You actually have something that you're like, I need to be as good as or better than that goal or person. When it comes to anxiety and depression, it's literally you fighting yourself, and that gets hard sometimes. I mean, there's no denying that it gets rough, but when you have good days, you make the most of it. And when you have bad days, you have family and friends, hopefully.
By the way, talking about anxiety and depression, I'm going to promote something quickly, if that's okay.
By all means.
It was quite a long time ago now. It was about 4 years ago. But if you do want to listen to some stories about it, about other people going through it, go check out Maelstrom Radio. Flatters did a series about it, anxiety and depression, with multiple different content creators, from Sarah from Phoenix Down, to Steve from A Stage Reborn, and even Paul. So yeah, if you ever want to go have a listen to something, it's 4 years old now, but there's still some stuff you can learn from it. So yeah, go check out the. It was called Here With Me series. There were 6 episodes. So,
and it's really good. I've checked it out myself. Yeah. And for anyone listening who thinks, oh hey, so and so content creator is always so positive, and they probably, don't experience this to the same degree or as much as me. Trust me, especially over the past year, speaking with other content creators, the anxiety is a lot bigger than you'd think. And especially every time a new episode is put out, or every time, even so far as like planning content, the anxiety can get pretty intense. Or in terms of like depression, if it's pretty rough sometimes when you put out content that is not as well received as you would have hoped. And that happens. I mean, I've even had episodes of this podcast just in this season where I'm like, all right, well, this episode, you sort of have an idea of how well the content will be received, and you're like, all right, well, this episode will do really well, this one might not. And then when that gets completely flipped on its head, it can be a bit rough.
I'll admit, I always get nervous whenever I have a guest on. Like, whenever we have guests on, I'm like nervous all the way up to the episode. Then I'm okay during the episode, but then afterwards, I that night I have the worst sleep because I'm like, oh my god, did they enjoy it? Did they really have fun? Did we stay on any kind of topic at all? Most of the time, no. But you know, were they expected me to be on topic? It's like I
think when you go into an episode of Moogle Go Around, having been on the podcast myself and really enjoyed it, I think that the topic gets talked about, and so I think the topic is hit and the goals discussed and all that. But then it's the casual banter and completely off-topic conversations that really make Moogle Go Around the fun experience that it is.
Well, we tried to make it so that you're meeting up with friends and chatting, and then you're technically talking about the topic, but there's everything else that's going on in the room, and you're like, oh, piece of candy, and then you go off topic. So, going off that topic and going into a slightly more relaxing mood. Now, to lighten the mood up a bit, a listener asked, who do you ship Nobutaka with in 14, and how is that going? What is your headcanon for them? Is there anyone you like?
Okay. So, obviously I know who submitted this question. In terms of roleplay, I actually ship Nobutaka with someone, and I'm blushing while saying this, so someone kind of obscure. I know a lot of people like shipping their character with various Scions or Xenos or whoever. I actually ship Nobutaka with the wedding attendant NPC Clarabelle, and how that came about is kind of a weird story. When I first started playing 14, weddings had come out, and so I would attend free company members' weddings, and so to joke around and kind of stand out because I was still this low-level player, I stupidly at like every wedding would like go up and dote on or hug Clarabelle. And then when I got into role playing and actually trying to flesh out my character, I was like, you know what? Clarabelle really, if you look for fan fictions of her, aside from what I've written, there are none. And if you look at fan art of Clarabelle, you'll find maybe like one or two pieces tops. And I was like, this NPC just does not get any love, which is kind of ironic because she's in charge of, having all the, like, helping all these characters get married. And I was like, that, if I write a fan fiction or do role play from her perspective, I imagine that must be kind of depressing to like help everyone else and have everyone else be like, thanks, Clarabelle, and then just, leave the chapel and go off and do 14 things. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to ship Nobu with her because I imagine Nobutaka, especially after like all the doting stuff as a joke when I first started playing, would be like, you know what? With you having to help and watch everyone else be happy, you should be happy too.
I'll be honest, when you said that it was an obscure NPC, I had a completely different person in mind. Then, although I don't know their name, I can't remember their name, but because of your love of carbuncles, of course, I was thinking of the relic NPC in Idleshire because of their giant carbuncle.
The fair. But
So
no.
that was the one in my head. So, any thoughts or reflections on this first season of the podcast?
You know, I've had a few days to think about that question and still don't have a good answer. So, gosh, if I had to sum up season 1 in one word, I would say it was transformative. Obviously, my role in the 14 community has expanded quite a bit, but also I've gotten to meet so many members of the community that if I wasn't a content creator, I doubt we'd have corresponded to the degree we have. I got to learn about various parts of the 14 content creation community through doing this. Like, for instance, my episode about Garlean role players, I really didn't know almost anything about Garlean role players before that episode. And now I'm on, I'd say, 2 different Discords, I think, 2 or 3. Two or three different Discords with Garlean role players, and getting to know all these people, and also getting to know more event hosts, and even through just scouting people to be on the podcast. I've learned about them. I've learned about their community. This first season has just it's been an experience. I feel like how I viewed 14 before this podcast as just kind of a casual game versus how I view it now as this big, huge, thriving, living community that is even bigger than I think I expected a year ago. And that's with the realization that I still probably don't even know 1% of the people that play 14, including content creators. So being able to learn more about, being able to be part of this, what I'm quickly discovering is a way bigger tapestry than even I expected, of a community, it's just been an incredible experience.
That's awesome. Well, I guess while we're talking about thoughts and reflections, we can move on to the fact that I wonder. I know I wonder, will we be getting the Coffee and Carbuncles season 2? Hopefully you didn't listen to what we said earlier, but will we?
The fact that you can say that with that much excitement, in spite of like our conversations of the past 2 weeks, shows that you are a great acting talent, and I appreciate you.
Thank you.
So yes, the Carbuncles out of the bag. We are definitely. I said that I wasn't sure, and I wanted to sort of take it a season at a time, see how season 1 did, and then I'd think about, do I want to do a season 2? Because, and Chille can attest to this way more than I can, because he has a weekly, sometimes bi-weekly episode release, but a lot of work goes into content creation, and I'm not going to lie, it tends to be a pretty big time sink, even just having a monthly podcast. So, especially starting out, I was like, do I want to do this every month? I don't know. But now I'm sure that there is definitely going to be a season 2. I have already started asking guests to be on the podcast for season 2. I've started making plans to work on my audio and work on some of the programs I use so that I can deliver a better podcast experience to everyone listening. And I think that, at least it's my hope, that season 2 is going to be even better than season 1. And I'm hoping that people will enjoy the guests I have on for season 2. One thing I will say is, if in season 2, and if there is a season 3, and you see guests, the same guest on the podcast at different times, it's because I feel like they're the best person to talk about a specific topic, but also because they may have had something big come up in their lives or something might have changed on a specific 14 topic. And so I want to have them back to discuss. And season 2 may have 1 or 2 people from season 1 that come back for a new interview. But that's because, obviously things in 14 change. And right now, I'll talk about it more later, but there is going to be a bit of a break between season 1 and season 2. But season 2 will definitely be happening this autumn.
Yay! That's awesome. I look forward to it. Thank you. I look forward to seeing who the guests are, because you've had so many different guests in season 1, so it's going to be fun to see all the different types of guests you'll get in season 2. Because
I can actually. Sorry.
Ooh. I was going to say, because you are very good at these podcasts, and I just want to say good. You do an amazing job.
I really appreciate that. I actually can go ahead and tell everyone that one of the guests I have lined up for season 2 of Coffee and Carbuncles is DJ Potate.
Ooh, that's awesome.
They are a fantastic DJ. I reached out. I was like, hey, this is the podcast. I'd love to have you on. I'd love to talk about music in 14. And I've been wanting to have a few music-focused guests on the podcast in season 1, but our schedules either didn't line up or there just wasn't really time to have them on based on the other things that I wanted to talk about this season. So expect season 2 to have, I wouldn't say like a really heavy music focus, but I think 2 or 3 episodes we're probably going to talk about the music in 14 quite a bit and explore that.
I can't remember what episode of one of Moogle Go Around, but I still remember that I pulled off some sort of wizardry to get the guests on, because I still don't know how I did it, because we had 3 guests because it was a PvP related episode, and we had multiple different parts of the PvP community on from PvP Revival. But I remember one guest lived in America. I think one guest lived in Amsterdam. And I think one guest was like Australia. I had to like find a time zone that somehow fit everyone. Luckily, one of them was up late. It didn't matter too much, but I had to try and find a time zone where everyone was at a semi-reasonable hour. It was like trying to balance clocks, I guess.
It's not fun. You say that is making me cringe. Like just thinking about trying to coordinate all those time zones. The guests I've had on just from the UK, trying to make that work is its own, kind of hurdle. And then I had Kitsu on, who he lives in Australia, and that was kind of a pain. I can't imagine doing that with 3 different people in 3 different time zones, especially given that none of those are even your time zone.
No, none of them are my time zone.
My kudos. Oh my gosh.
Thank you.
Like, that's just... Nope. Nope. Nope.
I think I recorded at like 1 a.m. my time, which was like 2 a.m. somewhere else, and like the morning somewhere else, and the evening for someone else. So it was like, that's all I have to do. This is the best I can do.
What we do for content creation. I mean, one of my episodes, I can't remember off the top of my head which episode it was, but I literally was up at like 10 or 11 at night recording the podcast episode because that's what worked for my guest. So that's what we did, because as host, that's what you do.
I mean, our last episode was at 1 a.m. our time, so what can I say? People say I don't sleep. I keep proving them right. I sleep honest.
I'm one of those people that says Chille never sleeps. I have DM'd him this.
I remember when Susan would come into my Twitch chat and just only send the message of, go to bed. So, as we start wrapping up, you always give your guests 2 questions to ask. Do you have any questions for me?
I do. I came prepared. Since this isn't an official Chille interview, I came prepared with my questions for you. The first one being, it's no secret that you love Wendy's. Everyone who knows you love Wendy's.
Yeah, I do.
My question is, have you ever had Wendy's outside of England, and does foreign Wendy's taste different?
For anyone that wants to know the reference of why people know I like Wendy's is because at the start of the year I had an injury and I had to go to hospital. I was planning to go away in January, so I had to cancel that, and I decided instead of going away even though I had a broken wrist and it was all patched up and stuff like that, wrapped up. I decided to take a train for 4 hours to get a Wendy's, then booked a hotel so that I could then try Wendy's breakfast. So yeah, I booked an entire. I paid the equivalent of $150 so that I could have Wendy's.
It's a pilgrimage.
So I have indeed have Wendy's in America. I had Wendy's when I was in Vegas. The first time I went to Vegas in 2016 for FanFest, the Wendy's was actually closed by like 8 p.m. It was ridiculous. I was like, why is it closed? It's like, it's Vegas. Everywhere else is open. Why is the Wendy's closed? And then in the 2018 one, the lovely folk at Maelstrom Radio got me a Wendy's. I did something and they're like, oh, we'll treat you to a Wendy's for it. I can't remember what I did. I can't remember. I was a good boy and I did something and I got a Wendy's for it. I can't remember what I did. But anyway, I got a Wendy's there. Now, I've tried the Baconator in both the UK and America. And I tried the Baconator fries while I was in America, but I haven't tried them here. Because when I tried them in America, they were horrible. Do not buy the Baconator fries. They are bad. But the Baconator, I've got to admit, I've got to give it to the UK. The UK one was better than the American one. Well, okay. I think the burger was better in the UK, but I felt like I got a lot less bacon in the UK than I did in America. So if you want the bacon part of the Baconator, then go to America. Yeah, casually fly to America from England. Casually say that, no. But no, the American version I think had more bacon, but the England one was pretty. I think the burgers were better in England, even though they're probably the same burgers. But I felt they were better.
That's interesting.
And I also tried the breakfast Baconator in England as well, which was really good. I do recommend the breakfast Baconator because I do a breakfast version, and it was delicious. That's why I wanted to stay, so I could try the breakfast Baconator. I also tried the spicy nuggets before I left. In fact, I think the staff got sick of seeing me by the time I left the next day. They're like, I actually went into the Wendy's and said, I have travelled 5 hours for this Wendy's. Yeah, I had the suitcase with me and everything. Yeah, I had my suitcase and everything with me at the time. I had like a backpack up, my Final Fantasy XIV backpack on me with my pajamas and stuff like that. Like,
I just thought you were out of your mind.
Come on, it's me. I don't care.
Next time, do it in the penguin outfit.
So
Ask
yeah,
them if they have any fish.
Ask it. And then this poor person, right? They had a cutout of Wendy. You know, the redhead, the girl. I don't know if her name is just Wendy. Yeah, the mascot.
It's Wendy.
Yeah, I asked a random person in queue if they could take a picture of me with my phone. So I just gave them my phone and said, "Can you take a picture?" And I had my head put through the cutout. It was fun. So thank you, random stranger, for accepting my random request.
So then, would you say that it was basically your own version of like a Wendy's Fan Fest?
Yeah, it was. It was Wendy's Fan Fest, and I want to do it again sometime. Because yeah, Plus, I also went to the video game museum, which was fun. So
neat.
I want to do Wendy's again. I miss it. It's been too long. It's been like 7 months? Yeah, it's been too long.
All right.
So,
and I think I'm ready for the second question if you are.
Sure.
So you had a celebration stream for your own podcast, Moogle Go Round, with you and Paul, in which you had a penguin outfit. Would you ever wear the penguin outfit at FanFest?
Probably not. Because that was a fun outfit to wear for 1,000 followers. I still have it behind me at all times for some reason, like a creepy suit. But no, my outfit is always the poop hat at conventions.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I walk around. Well, it happened in 2018. But the folk at She Heals I Tank helped me get to FanFest. And as you can guess, She Heals I Tank acronym is shit. So they used to call themselves the Shit Podcast. So, sorry, is that okay?
It's fine.
Because I'm trying to. That's what the podcast was called. That's what they would call themselves that. So anyway, they helped me get me. So they said, if you wear this hat for a photo, as a thank you for for them helping me get to FanFest, they're like, wear this for just a photo. I'm like, no, I don't. No, I just wore it for the entire event. I just walked around the entire FanFest with it on, and then I just started wearing it whenever I went on cam for anytime I had like a interview or stuff like that where I was on webcam, because I don't do it often because I don't like showing my face that much, but I've done it a couple of times for Work to Game and Brian and stuff like that, and other shows. And anytime I do that, I wear the poop hat.
I mean, sometimes you just gotta roll with it, you know?
Yeah.
Find
Fun
something
fact,
that works.
I even wore it with my interview with a little person called Yoshi P.
Never heard of him.
So, yeah. I was sat here like at 2 a.m. with my poop hat on, and it's like I'm like, nobody but me is getting this in this entire room, but I'm enjoying the hell out of it.
So this Yoshi P person, I assume he's related to Mario somehow.
Yeah, it's a me. So I'm hoping that when I walk around FanFest this year, that with the poop hat on, that maybe I get noticed, and that, if I do, that will make me smile. So I don't think I would. There would be a bigger honor than that.
So, just so everyone knows, again, spoilers. Chille is going to be at EU FanFest this year.
Yes, I am.
And Chille will be easy to find. Just look for the poop hat.
Yeah, just look for the poop hat. It's going to be harder to find me here than it was in North American FanFest, though. So it was quite funny because they knew who I was because I was one of the only few people in the whole room that was, had a British accent. So it was a lot easier to find me in the American FanFest.
Well, see, then you just need to switch it up between now and FanFest. Work on your American accent, and then everyone will be able to find you. What?
I'm not even going to bring it up. That's enough. Texas Chille is... anyone who listens to our show knows that reference. So...
So, with that being said, obviously, if anyone listening to this hasn't, please go check out Moogle Go Round with Chille and Paul. And if you're lucky, Texas Chille.
If you're unlucky, Texas Chille. Unlucky, Texas Chille. or Benjamin Chillhouse.
The third.
Yeah.
Chille, thank you so much for being willing to take on the interview role today and help me with the season finale of Coffee and Carbuncles. I really appreciate it.
Anytime. Thank you for allowing me to do it. It was a big honor to be able to do this. I know there's all different content creators out there right now, and so it meant a lot that you decided to have me do the questioning. So thank you so much.
And this was on top of the fact that you had like 4 other podcasts to be on this week, I believe.
I was a guest on a show on Monday. We had a Moogle go around on the Thursday, and then we've got this today, and then I've got 2 more after this. So yeah, 5 in total.
All right. Well, then I'm not going to keep you much longer, but thank you, and thank you to everyone for tuning in. The outro is going to talk a little bit more about the end of Season 1, as well as the start of Season 2 of Coffee and Carbuncles. And to everyone who doesn't stick around for the outro and, wants to tune out after the interview, I hope you all have a great day. And Chille, I hope you have a great day too. Have a good weekend, man.
Thank you. And I hope you do too. Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye, everyone. I don't know why I'm waving. You can't see it.
Hey, everyone. It feels a little strange saying all of this at the end of Season 1 of the podcast. First off, a huge thank you to Chille, who, in spite of his busy week and me suggesting that we could record any other time, went, nope, I'm fine. It's the end of Season 1, let's do this. He was just wonderful. And really, what a journey this season has been. A journey I have been honored to be on with all of you. Before recording this podcast, I could have done with more self-confidence, but at the time of this episode being recorded, the podcast has hit over 1,000 downloads. Something that not only has helped my confidence a lot, but I just never thought was possible. Also, over 200 of you are following the various Coffee and Carbuncles social media accounts, and I'm just in awe. Thank you. From the bottom of my heart, thank you to all of you. Now, due to a series of other engagements and wanting to take time to get Season 2 together, lining up guests, improving the audio, and even working on the Coffee and Carbuncles YouTube channel, we will be having a bit of a 2-month pause between Seasons 1 and 2. So I hope you'll all have a wonderful rest of your summer, as well as your early autumn. Then, before you know it, November will arrive, and I will catch all of you right back here, with a warm drink and wonderful guests. Until then, take care.